Today for you, I finally have a question I get to answer. So, the question here is from the name Mr. BoobTube. That's MRBUBETUBE. Interesting name. Anyway, his question is that your John Deere X580? If so, could you talk about why you bought that model and not a 100, 300, or 700 series lawn tractor? What do you use it for? Does it snow where you live? And do you use it for snow removal? So with this video, I'm gonna go into answering each of these questions, and it actually gave me the idea for a really good video, nonetheless, to talk about all the different series of the John Deere lawn tractors, my opinions about them. I do have experience with the 100 series, so we'll get into that a little bit, but then I'll just go through each series and kind of my thoughts, and if I was, depending on the type of buyer, I think which model I would settle on, because if I had to pick a model in each in each line, I think I would usually end up going with a model up, at least for the 100 series. The 300 series, haven't really decided in there, but we'll get into all that anyway. But I have my computer in front of me here. I'm going to be going through John Deere's website a little bit, just so I can state the facts as they come, so I'm not just straight up trying to grab stuff off my head. Though I did do a lot of research when planning on getting this thing, so I do have a good bit of information about these things. So to get into it first, let me answer these questions. So, is this my John Deere X580? Yes, this is my John Deere X580. At this point, at the time of making this video, my channel is not very huge yet. I don't have anybody, any dealers, any sponsor or anything trying to throw products at me to use. If somebody wants to do that, that's great. I mean, I'll gladly take a 1025R or something cool like that to mess around with. No, but this is mine. I did buy it myself. It's not being used commercially at this point at all. I just wanted, a very beefy lawn tractor, garden tractor. So yeah, to answer that, that is mine. Why I bought that model, we'll get into that, but I'll answer these other questions first since they're quicker. What do I use it for? So primarily, it is definitely just going to be a lawnmower. I initially had a 100 series. It was a D105. It got the job done, but I am currently in Alaska, and last summer was the first that I mowed, the lawn up here at my house here, and I did not realize how much grass grew in Alaska. Everybody thinks of Alaska as cold and probably not much grows. That is not true. In the summertime here, at least where I'm at, there's sun nearly 24/7 in the summertime. Like, it's what time? It's 9:20 here right now, and it's bright as can be out. So there's a lot of sun, there's a lot of grass growing. You pretty much have to mow twice a week, and that's not just being picky about mowing your lawn. That's like a must have to do, or else you're gonna have a very hard time. You're gonna have to double mow on the weekend or whatever. So you pretty much need to be mowing a lot. So I put a lot of hours on the 105, and it just did not handle the grass, and the grass in my yard was pretty thick too. Like, it was actually a pretty decent looking yard, and I fertilized it and did all that. So it came in really thick, and the 100 series just did not, at least the 105 with that little 17.5 horse, single cylinder motor, it did not want to get through that grass, the way I wish it would. So I wanted something a bit more powerful. And then secondly, I wanted to be able to redo my driveway. That was one thing I really wanted to be able to do myself, because I know that can cost a lot to do, if you have someone come in and do it. And I just wanted to try it myself. In the future, I would like to have my own lawn care business, I think, maybe when I grow up, and then also get into driveway refinishing and stuff. So I wanted to try it out and see how I could do. So the fact that I was able to get a box blade for it, and even build a tool for it, that kind of thing, that was definitely something I needed. And then also I wanted to get into doing a vegetable garden. That unfortunately my wife and I decided not to. But in the future, at some point, I definitely plan on that. So I want to be able to have it for that. Um, does it snow where I live? Of course, I said I lived in Alaska, so yes, it snows a lot where I live. Um, and do I use it for snow removal? I do not. I have a four-wheeler with a 60-inch plow blade. I use that for snow removal. Would I like to use this? Yes, I would love to have the snowblower attachment for it. That would be really cool. There's so much snow here that you need to push snow way back, like way further than you would think you would need to in the first snows of the season. Otherwise, you're going to run out of room to put snow at the end of the season. And that definitely happened to me the first year I got up here. And then this past winter, it started happening at the very end. We had gotten more snow than usual. So that kind of played a part into it. But this coming year now, I'm definitely going to have to plan to do a little bit more pushing back of the snow. But for right now, I don't think I'll be using this for snow removal. So that is all of those questions, other than why I bought this model, not a 100, 300, or 700. So I'll go through and answer that quick, and then I'm going to go in depth in all of the series of John Deere lawn tractors and talk about my thoughts on them. So why I didn't buy a 100 series. So I have experience with the 100, as I said. I have the D105. It was a great tractor. However, if there's one thing you ever hear about lawn tractors and what's good about this one or what's good about this one, the one thing I think you'll see come up the most is the transaxle. So the transaxle for the 100s are definitely the weak point, especially on the D100, the E100, all of those on like the very lowest trim. So the 105, the E100, I want to say probably even like the L100, LA, whatever those models were. They all actually had a plastic housing for the transaxle. And then the models up from there got better. They had aluminum transaxles. Now, I don't believe they were anything super strong, but at least they were metal. So that realistically was just the point that, you know, I walked away from the 100. Like I already had one, so not gonna get another one of those. The 300, of course, I mentioned about wanting to be able to use a box blade, do stuff like that. The 300 is more like a really nice lawnmower, but not really to the point to where you can use it as a garden tractor to do actual groundwork. Now, if you are only snow blowing or moving snow around, the 300 would probably be great, as long as you pick one of the higher end ones, and I will get into that when I go through all the models. But yeah, the 300, you can't really do anything ground engaging with them, so went past that one for me. Now, I of course picked a 500 series, but the question goes up to the 700, so why didn't I go to the 700? Well, plain and simple, the 700 are really big lawn tractors. This one is quite a bit bigger than a 100 series. It's about the same size as the 300 series. It's a similar frame, similar hood, everything like that. The fender deck is a little bit different on it. And then of course the rear wheels are different, transaxle's way different, stuff like that. But the 700 is a completely different animal. You're really getting close to, you know, a subcompact tractor with those. And with that comes a lot more price. You also have hydraulics on them that are separate, so you can run front hydraulics, rear hydraulics. You can get 3-point hitches for them. Those are pretty crazy, and that would be nice to have. However, when you start looking at them, and even the diesel ones, you start getting up to the price point where it's like, if you're gonna buy this and it's a lawnmower, why not just buy a 1025R or something like that, you know, why not just move up to a full-blown subcompact? So that's my, you know, way of thinking there. And it just, I mean, I'm right now in the military, and I don't need to be trying to move a subcompact tractor along with everything else I have whenever I leave here. So that just seemed out of, you know, out of what I needed. You know, plus I don't have so much work to do on my property here that I really need that and can justify that at this time. You know, I can justify this. It's a lawnmower, and then I have some, you know, lightweight, well, they're heavy, but lightweight compared to other implements, you know, implements for it that, you know, I can do some basic work with. I have that little box blade, you know, I have stuff like that. So it gets what I need done, and, you know, that's what I need. So I didn't go, you know, with anything as big as the 700 series. It was just too much for me at the time. Would I like to have one? Yes, I would very much like to have one, but I think I'll be all right. Stupid fly. So now, why did I choose the 580 over the 570 or the 590 or the 584? The 570, so I looked a lot into that one. One thing that I didn't like was the fact that it didn't have the hydraulic lift for the deck, which means the power hitch for the back is not hydraulically actuated, it's manual. Now, I found out real quick that I made the right decision when using the box blade to redo the driveway, that when you're grading with that box blade, it's really nice to be able to lift just a little bit on that deck lift lever, and you get it to the point to where the hitch actuates up enough to where it just starts to pick that blade up. And when it does that, it starts to let a little bit of material out from under it, and you can really smooth out with it really nicely. Whereas the manual hitch, it's just a big lever that you just push back and forth. And I don't know that you'd actually be able to do as good of a job with the manual sleeve hitch. So that was one big thing. Another big thing, the 570 is more, in my opinion, like a beefed up 300 series. It does have the K72 transaxle. However, it doesn't have the hydraulics like I talked about. You don't get the front weight bracket right away. That's an option. You have an inch smaller front tires. What else? Of course, you don't have the power steering, which I'll talk about that. It's just a little bit different beast. It's not quite as heavy duty. The spindles on the front axle, I don't see it on John Deere's website now, but a few months back it was there. So I don't know if it's a change for 2021 maybe, and they changed it on their website, but I did see that there's different size bearings on the 570s as opposed to the 580, 584, and 590. These actually have a thicker spindle on the higher ones, the 580, 584, and 590. 570 had an actual like thinner axle, you know, thinner spindle. So if you're really looking for the, you know, heavier duty ones, you're better off going with the higher model numbers for the 500 series. So 570 kind of thrown out. 580 and 590. Originally I wanted a 590. I thought, cool, electronic fuel injection, you know, that's pretty neat. You know, you get an extra, I think, horsepower and a half, or just 1 horse maybe, I don't know. It was like 25 or 25 and a half. You know what? I have it right here. Let's look. $25 and a half. So you get an extra horse and a half. Pretty cool. Plus you get a tilt steering wheel, which, you know, great, but not really a deal breaker. And I believe that's about it. There's not really a whole lot of difference between that and the 580. So what it came down to, and the reason I don't have a 590 sitting here, is I'm in Alaska. Availability is a really hard thing to come by here. The dealer could have special ordered one. I probably would have had to wait. I probably would have had to pay some shipping on it, which I didn't want to have to do. But they did have, I think, 2 of these coming in to one of their other dealers. So they said they could get one of these up there. So I went back and I thought about it a little bit, and then I was like, do I really need the electronic fuel injection? I was like, it's not that big a deal. It's going to be sitting inside all the time, so it's not like I'm going to have to worry about cold starting it or anything. And then a tilt steering wheel, I really don't care about that. But other than that, it's basically the exact same tractor. I was like, why not? I'll do that. Plus, it's, you know, a good bit less. Looking at the website here, let's see, how much less was it? It's like 600 less. So it's quite a bit. I mean, that could pay for, you know, an implement or two, you know, a few accessories for it. Like, you know, it just made sense to me. You know, I might as well go to it. Plus, I could get it quicker. You know, they already had it coming, so it just worked out. So hopefully that answered the question sufficiently. I feel like I went through everything pretty good. But yeah, it is my 580. I listed off why I chose the 580 and talked about all the others. So now I'm going to get into my opinions on all the other John Deere lawn tractors / garden tractors. So looking at their website, let's start at the 100 series. So as I said earlier, I had a D105. It was a great lawn tractor. I'd recommend the 100 series to anybody needing just a lawnmower to cut grass. As long as you don't overwork them, I don't see you having the problems that I think a lot of people complain about. People complain about them being garbage. People complain about the transaxles. People just saying don't even buy one. You know, buy a 200, buy a 300 series. Don't even bother. I'm not quite gonna say that. They're not bad. Use them as they're intended. So to caveat that though, I would not so much recommend the lowest end. So currently they have the S100 series. They used to be the E100s, and before that the D100s. They changed these over time, and with this S series they also gave it a bit of a facelift. They do look pretty good, I'll give them that. And they did do a little bit of changes too. I noticed looking locally, a couple of the big box stores had some S100s, and I just wanted to see, you know, how do these compare to the D105 that I had. The D105, so it had a, what was it, an RT400 transaxle by General Transmissions. Now the S100 is using a TLT200 transaxle. Now the D105 had a plastic housing, and the S100 now actually has a metal housing. So whether or not the actual transaxle itself is better, I'm not going to say that. I don't have experience with it, so I can't really say for sure. But I'll give John Deere the benefit of doubt that they've listened to people and, you know, brought that transmission down from their other models and brought it into that very entry-level one, just to kind of, you know, fix that problem a little bit. Hopefully it fixes that problem. Hopefully they don't see as much flack about them. But, yeah, you know, if you're looking for just a decent priced, you know, lawnmower just to get your lawn cut, go for it. It seems like a, you know, reasonable thing. That same transaxle though is used all the way up through the S160. Now if I was going to buy a 100 series, I would at least go with the S170 or 180. Those two actually move up to the Tough Torque K46 transaxle. So pretty cool there. You definitely get a real transaxle per se. You're not getting just a little tiny junky one. You're going to be a little bit better with those two. Plus you get a lot more features. You get nicer seats. You get bigger deck size. You get a 48-inch deck on the 170 and a 54 on the 180. So other than that, I think the two are about the same. You get that goofy, gimmicky 30-second oil change. I don't know that I like that. That's one thing that steers me away from any of the newer 100s, honestly. I don't know. I change my own oil. I'm somewhat mechanically inclined. I can do that stuff. So simple things like that for people that maybe aren't so good at that kind of stuff just kind of steer me away. Now, one bit of beef I have though with the 100 series is the S180. Okay, on their website, the MSRP is $28.99. I would not buy a 180. I would go to a dealer and buy an S240. Now, the S240, its MSRP is also $28.99. Now, what do you get with that? You get the Kawasaki engine, which, from the way they're marketed, is better than the Briggs & Stratton engines. This is my first Kawasaki engine. Pretty much every mower or anything that I've ever dealt with like that has always had a Briggs engine. My little push mower, Briggs engine. Of course, the D105 had a Briggs. I think one of the other videos I had, I talked about a mower I used a long time ago. That was a Briggs. Like, everything's a Briggs. So I haven't had issues with them, but apparently some people do, and apparently they say the Cowies are better. So we'll see. But you get the Kawasaki engine with the S240. You get the same transaxle. You get a slightly smaller deck. You get the 48-inch deck. However, with that, it's the Excel Deep deck, which is nice because it's deeper, it's heavier. You'll be able to process grass quite a bit better. The horsepower rating on the engine, though, I think is a little bit less. Yeah, 24 horse with the S180s Briggs and only 21 and a half with the Kawasaki. Now, that's a lot of power either way. And since you have a slightly smaller deck, I don't think that change in horsepower is really going to matter too much. But if it were me and my money and you were looking at, going, top of the line 100 series, getting that S180 or the S170, don't. Just go get a 200 series. I think you're going to be better off there. Plus you get a better warranty, all that good stuff. So honestly, I would just say skip the 100, go for the 200 if you're going at those very entry-level mowers. Now, going from a 200 to a 300, you're looking at a pretty big jump going up to the X330. Price is definitely higher, but you're getting into a bit heavier mower, and now you're getting to the point to where you can use it for snow removal and stuff like that, and you're probably not going to damage it. One thing to look at, the S170 all the way up to the, let me see here, I want to get the model number right, X350, 350R, and 354 all use the same transaxle. So realistically, if you're even going to consider an X300 series, you might as well not, unless you're going to go at least with the 370 to where it bumps up to the K57. Like I talked about earlier, if you're looking at mowers, chances are you've been seeing stuff about transaxles, and I'm just going to base everything off transaxles because of that. I would definitely go with the higher levels of the X series or the X300 series in order to get that better transaxle, because realistically you could buy an S180 and arguably have the same results from it as an X350, minus of course the Excel Deep deck, the Kawasaki engine, stuff like that. Heavier weight, bigger wheels and tires depending on the model. But there are some gimmicky things about the X series too. There's the X350R, which is a rear discharge. It's a rear bagging system, kind of goofy. And then there's the X354, which is a 4-wheel steer. If that's your kind of thing, you have a lot of landscaping you got to get around, a lot of trees and stuff, you know, that might be a great buy. However, there are other options. You know, you could go up to that 390. If I was going to buy a 300, of course, I would probably go up, you know, into that 390 range, because you're basically getting a 500 series tractor at that point, minus the bigger transaxle. You're basically getting an X570, except now you have hydraulic lift. So that's pretty cool. It's literally pretty much an X570, but with hydraulic lift, one less horsepower. The deck is the same size. Yeah, so there's a lot of overlap in these different series of tractors. So you really just gotta think, like, what's your main use? Like, if you're wanting to be able to do groundwork with it, definitely move up to that X500 series at this point. If you just need a really nice lawnmower, you have a lot of yard to mow, and you want something a bit heavier and a bit nicer than a 100 or 200 series, definitely go with the higher end 300 series. You'd be happy with that one. I have seen the 300 series and the 200 series. My dealer had a few of them in when I was, you know, asking about getting one of these. They are nice. There's nothing wrong with them. But yeah, I would stick with the higher end ones of the 300s, of course. Always go with the higher end, really. I mean, you're gonna have more options and stuff like that, unless it's just not what you need. So to move on then from the X300 series, we get into the 500s. Now, I already talked a bit about the 500s, and I'm going to talk about more about some of the stuff I like and don't like about this one. So in the 500 series, I talked about the 570 being basically a little bit of a beefed up 300. You definitely get a better transaxle with the 500 or with the 570. Unfortunately, you drop the hydraulics. And what else? You get a more powerful engine. You know, you get an extra horse. You get a better warranty, stuff like that. So, and then of course you can do ground engaging stuff, you know, at this point. So you can plow with it. You can use the box blade, cultivators, all that kind of stuff. You know, you can make your own tools like I did. To break up ground, stuff like that you can do with the 500, which you could probably do with the upper level 300s, but you're, you know, starting to get to the point to where you could be eventually damaging that transaxle too soon. Excuse me. So between the 500s, I of course would not go with the 570 based off of what I had found before about the weaker spindles on it. That's just something that if you're getting something like this, you're probably going to want the most heavy duty version possible. So go with the stronger spindles. You know, go with having the weight bracket already on there for you, ready to go. But there are some things about this that I gotta say I'm not a fan of. So the hydraulic deck lift is nice. Having the hydraulics for the power hitch is nice. Having the hydraulic power steering, I cannot say that I like all that much. It is really nice. It is very effortless. Honestly, it feels like there's no weight on the front end at all. Like, it turns so easily. Like, you could definitely put your pinky on it and turn that wheel while you're moving. It's crazy how effortless it is, honestly. And I don't really like that. I like having a little bit of, you know, feeling in the steering, if you will. I'm used to that 105 and just having that sector gear and pinion, and, you know, it was pretty light even then still. And I mean, obviously that mower was light, so there's not a lot of weight there, but even having 4 quick attach weights on the front of this, you know, this thing still steers like there's no weight on it. It's ridiculous. But I honestly can't say that I like that. I almost wish that it didn't have power steering, But then who knows, maybe it would be so heavy that it would be tough to steer and I wouldn't like it. I don't know. So if you like having the feeling of steering, maybe you would want to stick to a 570. And then also just moving it around the garage, like it's tough to do just pushing by hand, because you kind of force that steering wheel around, and it's not the most fun thing to do. It doesn't feel right. Honestly, I don't really know that you're supposed to steer those, without them actually pumping hydraulic fluid through it. So I try to leave steering it without it on to a minimum if I can. Excuse me. It's just one thing that I could do without on this tractor, but I mean, it's on there now and it is nice, so I guess I'll live with it. That's that. What else? I think that's all I'm going to talk about really for the 500 series. Overall, pretty happy with it. I mean, there's not too much else though that the 580s and that have. I didn't go with the 584. I didn't really think I needed the four-wheel steer. Plus I like having the wider tires, the wider rear tires on this one. The four-wheel steer versions have much thinner, by like a few inches, much thinner tires in the back. So I figured I don't really need four-wheel steer. I didn't before, so figured I wouldn't now, and figured it'd be better to just go with a wider tire. So 580, 590, that would definitely be my recommendation in the 500 series. 570, as far as the spindles, if they change that would probably, make one of these, just as great as all the others, minus that power hitch. I don't like the idea of having the manual hitch on the 570. But I can't find that info about that spindle size anymore. So they may have changed that for 2021, but I can't confirm that. But that may be something to check out if you have the two side by side, and that's something you want to really consider if you're looking at getting like the most heavy duty version. If that's the price point you're at, you don't want to go any more, and you're really in that 500 series range, might be something to look at. Now the 700 series, there's a few models there. Honestly, I haven't really looked at them too much, because it's like you go up to the 758, the diesel ones, which has all the bells and whistles. That thing MSRP is $14,729. That's a lot of money, more than I wanted to spend. And honestly, you might as well just go to a 1025R. If we look at the 1025R, let's see. $1025R list price is $15,066. So you're like not even $1,000 more, and you could have a full-blown subcompact tractor, and then you can really take advantage of bigger implements, more types of implements. You do have the drive over mower deck on the 700 series, so you're not really gaining that. You have the option for a bigger loader. I mean, you have a miniature tractor, like full-blown tractor at that point. So realistically, I don't see the point in getting the 700 series, unless you're just staying at the very low end of the 700 series. You want that, big garden tractor, but aren't interested in the diesel or the four-wheel drive, the four-wheel steer, any of that. But if you are, just go to the 1025R. I think anybody would probably be much happier. One day I wouldn't mind having one, or even a 2, 3, or 4 series. But can't justify that for now. So that is my thoughts on the John Deere Lawn and Garden Tractors. Hopefully I may have presented some information to you that you found useful. Maybe I made your shopping for one a little bit easier. Maybe I talked about some good points for you. But yeah, I think I'm gonna call it for this one. Again, thank you for my commenter who asked that question. I appreciate the comment. Hopefully this answered your question. So with that, have a good one.